Salut! The word à is a preposition in French. A preposition is a word that shows the position of where things are, or it shows relationships between words. This little à, which has an accent going down, an accent grave, it can mean either to or at or in, depending on context, and it's often used with places. It can also be used with people if you're saying to. So, for example, mon frère est employé à la banque. My brother is an employee at the bank. So here, à means at. Numéro 2, je suis professeur à l'école. I am a teacher at school. This little à means at, or I guess it could also mean in. Nous allons au café. We are going to the cafe. Here, the word au, this is going to be a form of the preposition à when used in front of a masculine place. So instead of saying à le café, I say au café to mean at the coffee shop. And one more example with a person. Tu parles à ton cousin. You're talking to your cousin. And here we would use to plus a person. So à can mean at or in or to, and it's usually used in front of places. It can be used with people as well. You'll notice that à has more than one form. Frequently, it's just the word à by itself, but you're usually saying to the bank or at the school, and with the involved, you might need to make some slight changes. So, à can form a contraction, aka you are squishing it together with another word to make a new word. An example of a contraction in English would be the word don't. You take do, not, squish them together to form the word don't. In French, we do have a contraction between à and le, and between à and les. These are contractions and patterns that we're going to see a lot in French with little connector words, à being one of them. So if I have à followed by a masculine place or a masculine person like professeur, teacher, à, and the next word would normally be le, they will contract together to form the word au, which means at the, or to the, or in the. So nous allons au café. We're going to the cafe. So the word au is à plus le contracted, which means to the, at the, or in the. You do not have to make this contraction with a feminine place. So you can have à and la coexisting in harmony side by side just fine. So tu vas à la place. Are you going to the town square? Tu vas à la place. À and la can be together, no contraction necessary. Same thing with if the place is singular and starts with a vowel or vowel sound, you'll just put an L apostrophe in front, and you already have that contraction between the le or la and the next word. There's no need to make more contractions here. So, on va à l'école. We are going to the school. On va à l'école. The other contraction is with the word les. And so instead of à, les, which to me sounds like the verb aller, so no wonder they want to avoid that. To avoid saying aller, you'll squish those together to form au, which is the plural form of au up top. It has an X on the end. So je parle au professeur. I'm speaking au to the teachers. So au means to the, at the, or in the. You can hear the X sometimes if the next word starts with a vowel. So let's say that I'm going to the schools. I'm going to visit multiple schools today. Je vais aux écoles. Je vais aux écoles. You'll hear the X sound if the next word starts with a vowel. Now, I mentioned before that sometimes you'll just have à by itself. Here are examples. You'll have à in front of a proper noun. For example, Starbucks and other stores, they don't have a gender. And so I'll just say tu vas à Starbucks. You're going to Starbucks. If you are going to a city, most cities don't have genders. So I'll say il va à Richmond. He's going to the city of Richmond. You can also use "à" if there are other words in between, like a possessive adjective. For example, mon, ma, mes, ton, ta, tes, those words. So, je parle à ma mère. I'm speaking to my mom. So those contractions up top and those different forms of "à" were if the next word was a noun that started with le, la, L apostrophe, or les. So if you had an article involved. My examples down below do not have articles. There are numerous verbs that just naturally take the preposition "à," like going places. You go to, at, or in somewhere. Habiter à, you live in somewhere, or you live at a place. The verb commencer à, to begin. So in French, people begin to do something. And you'll have commencer à plus the activity you're going to do. So if I'm starting to speak, je commence à parler. Je commence gets conjugated. Then I have à. Then I have the infinitive parler. Je commence à parler. I'm starting to speak. When French people think about things, they actually think at them. Je pense à mon frère. I'm thinking at my brother. So penser à is to think about somebody. Parler à, that makes sense. You talk to somebody. And then téléphoner à, you call to somebody in French. There are tons more verbs that do this, so you'll see more as you learn more French. These are some examples of verbs that just naturally take the preposition à, and so we'll insert that little à after these verbs. For example, elle parle au professeur. She's talking to the teacher. Il commence à étudier ce soir. He is starting to, and then you have the verb to study tonight. So that little "ah" we're not used to doing in English. It does exist in French. One last little thing, and that is that there are more prepositions than just "ah." "Ah" is a big one that means to, at, or in, but we'll also see the preposition dans, which means inside of or within. A lot of the times when we think we're going to use "à," the answer is actually dans, or vice versa. We might use dans, but really it should be "à." These are just differences we have to get used to. When you're learning a place name in French, like house or a city, you'll just have to get used to which preposition accompanies that place or location. For example, à la maison means at the house, at home, whereas dans la maison means inside of the house. À Paris means in Paris, at Paris, so at the capital. Dans Paris means within the city boundaries, so within Paris. Do you know if that's different? Like if you don't really feel a difference there, it is very, very hard to distinguish some of these. You'll just eventually get used to which one you hear more often. En ville means in town. Dans la ville means within the city, within the town. Sur la place, in the square. So people just say sur la place, that's a phrase they use. And then à la terrasse or sur la terrasse means on the little outdoor seating area of a cafe, on the terrace. Here's an example. Tu travailles à la maison? Are you working from home? Are you working at home? Versus on mange dans la maison, we're eating in the house. Now, if you have trouble telling the difference between those two, I don't think that this is a huge deal if you use the wrong preposition. If you get your point across, then you are doing your best and succeeding at communicating in French. It's kind of like saying the difference between I'm riding on the bus, which is what we say in English, versus a French learner might say I'm riding in the bus, and you're like, no, it's on the bus. Is it really a huge, huge difference? Maybe not. Over time and with practice and with listening to more native French speakers, you'll get used to which prepositions belong where. For now, we're just focused on the preposition à, which means to, at, or in. It does have multiple forms if the next word is le or la, so I'll have to practice these forms. And you use the word à in front of places and people. Au revoir.